Good afternoon. If you would like to turn this way or make yourselves more comfortable, please do. Several of you are in officer positions that you haven't had before, and you're doing a great job. Everyone working together and supporting our practice. Beautiful sounds. It's the first day of February, 2026. And I don't have to tell you, it's a time of many challenges. Our own Sangha members have been going through illnesses, surgeries, welcome back, Fugan, and all manner of family difficulties. And then there's the weather. Will it ever end? Short answer is no. But it will change. And of course, with this bitter weather comes challenge of frozen pipes, crazy drivers, extensive car repairs. And many losses. During session, we learned of the passing of our dear Noritake Shunan Roshi. And we will be doing his 49-day service on March 8th. And then the passing of Joe Zvlinsky, the husband of our longtime, now retired treasurer, Toku Ellen Grappenstetter. And quite a few of you joined me at the Oakwood Crematorium on Friday morning for service. And his 49-day ceremony will be March 15th, which is Teisho's birthday. And then there are these widespread examples of what we might call un-American activity. We just read in the Song of Zazen. Somebody read that line about ice.
Ice and water.
Hmm?
It is like ice and water. Without water, no
Apart,
ice can exist.
right. Apart from water. Apart from water. What is water in this instance?
The citizens of the nation.
Okay, another way to put it. What is water for?
Form is emptiness, emptiness is form.
Okay,
Buddha nature.
Buddha nature. Without water, no ice can exist. This is something to keep in mind. And of course, the activities of those people who are now working on behalf of Homeland Security, quote unquote, or ICE. Not only in Minneapolis, but right here in Syracuse. They are casting a broad net of terror and intimidation. Probably no one here in this room is undocumented, right? You wouldn't say if you were. This is the point. People are afraid. A few months ago, people some of us know well and care so much about, Jeremy Reyna, a co-owner of Syracuse Soap Works, with his husband, Rick Reyna, escaped ICE thanks to community strategic support. Barely. And Jeremy fled to his native France. But now their 20-some-year-old business is shuttered, and all kinds of difficult matters have to be attended to. And just this week, as ICE arrests continue, 2 members of St. Lucy's Church were arrested as they left their construction job. And also arrested were 2 men who were married to each other who were working at Upstate Hospital. They are being deported to Ecuador, a notoriously homophobic country. And then, of course, we know of the massacre of civilians in Gaza, of protesters in Iran, compounded, exacerbated, we might say, by our own government's threats. Some of you may remember Rensho Asal, an Iranian student who was a resident at Daibusasu Zendo and served as my Inji and spent some time here as well. How long? 2 years as a resident here. And she, wisely, is now a Canadian citizen. She visited us here last May and then went back to Iran to see her parents. A dangerous trip. And now is safely back in Canada. Rensho means lotus, revealing or manifesting. This lotus flower, revealing a Buddha. For some time now, Andy and I have been watching films by Iranian directors, Kiarostami, but particularly Jafar Panahi. Some of you may have some awareness of him. He was imprisoned and tortured for quote unquote propaganda against the system. He can't leave Iran or work openly. Do you know his work?
Is he the one that made the documentary, kind of exposing?
He's done a lot of films.
Yeah, I mean,
All of them expose what's going on. His most recent film is It Was Just an Accident. What do we say when something goes wrong? Oh, it's an accident. I didn't plan that. And what does Buddhism teach?
No accidents.
No accidents. So this most recent film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes last year. How did it get to Cannes? It was shot in secret. No one knew he was making it, except a very small group of people who were helping him. Hello. Are you here from university? Welcome. Nice to see you. We're talking about current events. Yeah. And specifically, a film made by the Iranian director Jafar Panahi called It Was Just an Accident. So this was shot in secret and smuggled out of Iran on a USB device, one of those little things, hidden in a cake. I started a birthday email to Rensho. And I was so worried about her and her family after the devastation and mass killings during the recent protests. And I looked at my email in which I was speaking in part about Panahi's work, and then I felt I better delete this. Because, you know, surveillance is everywhere. Whatever we write on whatever medium, whatever we speak about, that we think. I'm sitting here talking to you, right? We think this is a protected space. Is it? It is a refuge. And yet we can't assume anything. So I thought, I better just not say anything except happy birthday. I miss you. And I sent it off, and she wrote back. And I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to share what she wrote with you. It's a little on the long side, but even though you don't know her, she was a resident here and at our monastery, and she's from Iran, so keep that in mind. She wrote, the entire month of January has been a nightmare, to be honest. There are many stories to be told, and some will never be told, as many lives are lost in Iran. Every day I receive the news of a friend who is killed, or someone's cousin. My mother was tear gassed on the night of January 8th, my son's birthday, in central Tehran. And she texted, I am heading home. And then the entire country went through blackout, internet and phone for days. On January 10th, an acquaintance who had exceptional access to Starlink informed my brother that our mother had made it home that night, walking down a highway for 2.5 hours. The amount of distress is beyond anything we could imagine, and various media outlets seem not to reflect the reality very well. For the time being, my parents are safe and sound, staying home mostly, although every moment being hyper alert for a strike by the US or Israel. That expectation for the next bombing was something I could also observe when I was in Tehran last November. I have lost most of my hope in any practical change or exit from this violence in a world where most leaders are so incapable. One thing that keeps me going is this. Every day I am reminded of having had the privilege and blessing of the three treasures, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. The very last bits of meaning that I am making out of this experience come from your teachings. There is also still a lot of room for service within all the darkness. On January 7th, Calm, that's her partner in Canada, Calm's cousin died of a heart attack in Tehran, and his family say it happened because of the crackdown on protests. The family announced they have donated his eyes, so his eyes might one day see the end of the Islamic Republic. Another story, she tells. A father went to the morgue to search for the body of his son among piles of the dead. He noticed one of the bodies still breathing. He lied that it was his son's corpse so he could save one life. The regime charges between $4,000 and $7,000 US to release the bodies. And they call it bullet price. It is so inspiring to know some people are still making choices that save lives. Have you already watched It Was Just an Accident by Jafar Panahi? I remember you mentioning it at the dining table in the Foreman house last May. It's a film about kidnapping someone recognized by Panahi and others as the chief torturer. And kidnapping this person, and then what? Then what? Tit for tat? Or so hard viewing, but important for us to know and to take into our own hearts. What do we do? Someone read the Bodhisattva's vow. In the beginning, when I, a student of Dharma, look at the real form of the universe, all is the never-failing manifestation of the mysterious truth of Tathagata. All in the marvelous revelation of its glorious light. Now move down to the section about even though they may be fools, be warm and compassionate toward them. If by chance they should turn against us and abuse and persecute us, we should bow down with humble words in the reverent belief that they are the merciful avatars of Buddha, who uses devices to emancipate us from harmful karma that has been produced and accumulated upon ourselves through our own egoistic delusion and attachment throughout the countless cycles of kalpa. Thank you. Now, as I've said before, we can never say that to someone else, right? We can only look within and see these examples of atrocity. Look within. Don't think those others are doing this. This is very difficult. We recite Bodhisattva's vow all the time, but do we really grapple with it? Do we really pay attention to those egoistic patterns that we don't even notice? We can get by just fine by ignoring them. We think. So it's so important for us not to see those avatars as others, separate from ourselves. How do they come into being? And how can we best respond Over and over, we have looked at this and thinking, okay, what can I do? What can I do? There's so much injustice everywhere. All this killing, all this intimidation. Well, there are things we can do, right? Yes, there are. Sitting is most important. Having a heart of compassion, extending our intensive love, loving mind, most important. And then I will speak more about this, but working together. Working together. In our own community, the Syracuse Peace Council is doing a lot. I don't know if anyone went to the protest Friday, but yes. This feels right, doesn't it? Just to be present feels right. And just as in the old days when we were involved in civil rights marches, we can't be sure that we're not going to be hurt. We have to take that into consideration. Just like the words we write. Knowing surveillance is everywhere. Knowing you could be pulled aside for taking a picture of what's happening. So, this is quite a time. And the examples that I've been giving you may seem disconnected at first. This is happening, that's happening, that's happening. But there's an underlying sense that I think we all feel that they are manifestations of global mad mind, as Venerable Shenhua termed it in his commentary to the Shurangama Sutra that we read in Dharma study last time. This mad mind. I was thinking it's as though there's some sort of gyroscope throwing the world off course. And I'm reminded of what Marcellus says in Shakespeare's Hamlet. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Denmark is everywhere in Shakespeare's mind, right? It's not singling out a country. Today, Denmark is truly worth our praise and a deep appreciation. But something is rotten.
Roshi, through my work, I've been working with someone who's located in St. Paul. And we were communicating in January, and I wasn't hearing back from her. And when she did get back to me, she said, I apologize, but I've been on the neighborhood patrol, making sure that everyone is safe.
And right here in central New York, Kusha's wife is doing that. So that people who are afraid to go out of their houses can go to church on Sundays. So yes, there are things we can do. But how is so important. You know, if we're all affected by the mad mind of unchecked, widespread greed anger and folly, then we have to understand if it's affecting us, then there's something called interconnectedness going on, right? And we can turn that interconnectedness around. That's what our practice does. That's what we're here to do. We can turn it around, turn the light around, as the Shringana Sutra says, Shringama Sutra. Turn your light around. Light up your Buddha nature so that it can shine. And so we can transform those three poisons, right? From greed to generosity. From anger to compassion. From folly to wisdom. Every situation in our lives calls for that, right? Not just what's going on politically or in the community we live in, but in our own personal lives, how we interact with each other, with our families. We have to move from anguish and paralysis to meeting the world with courage and clarity. The clarity of our practice. Not the way we think things should be, but seeing what is this? So we sit, we chant, we really chant, we grapple with it. What does this mean in my life? Even you don't have the English translation, feel it. It's not about language. Something stirs within, yes? It's nothing that can be explained, but it can be lived. So sitting, chanting, bearing witness, standing together in harmony and calling out injustice. Whatever we feel we can do makes a difference when it is imbued with the inner light of our true nature. And even if we think, oh, I don't really connect with my true nature, I'm such a bumbling, terrible example of being a Buddhist student, that's okay. Be aware of that. Do what you can. Things aren't going to wait until you get enlightened. So be enlightened now, as much as you possibly can. And you will find that it comes through you. It's not something you do. There's a poem by Adrienne Rich, was written about 49 years ago. I wanted to read to you, it's quite short. My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. And then this morning, I looked at my phone. I don't think I've ever brought my phone in, but here it is. Wonderful article. It's called A New Kind of Cook. David and I tried to figure out how to print this salvo. I thought, I'll just bring it in. This is by Yewande Komolafe. She is Nigerian, very well known for her cooking and columns on cooking and recipes that she's developed. And she's been a video host for the Times. I was born with sickle cell disease, an inherited blood disorder. It doesn't hinder my passion for food, but I had to learn to navigate the world with balance, alternating periods of exertion and rest to prevent a painful crisis. One such crisis began in December 2023. I went to a New York City hospital for what I thought would be a routine stay. 6 weeks later, I woke from a coma in a different hospital. A tube helped me breathe. Eventually, doctors would amputate my legs and my fingers. After 7 months in the hospital, I went home in an ambulance. Eventually, I'd acquire an electric wheelchair and prosthetic hands and legs. I was certain I would return to the kitchen. I just needed to figure out how. I began dreaming of the foods I yearned to make. So much of my body had changed, but I still had my sense of taste and smell, my culinary knowledge, my ability to eye when a dish is cooked just right. But when I returned to work as a columnist and recipe developer last April, I now needed the help of a cooking assistant who would act as my hands. The inspiration for my recipes still begins as a sensory image, evocative enough to pine for, or a thought that floats across my mind. But how I write them down has changed as I talk to my computer and rely on its accessibility software to record my words in text form. Sometimes it doesn't understand my Nigerian accent until I enunciate the syllables in a clipped tone. And then she speaks about how she works with her rotating cast of assistants. She said, I try to lead with kindness, and I don't mind repeating myself. I'm not always successful. I sometimes get impatient sharing a space that was once mine alone. And there's the frustration of needing to ask for help while giving guidance. Nearly 2 years into my recovery, she talks about doing a particular recipe, and I won't go into the details, But she says, in a life spent traversing long distances, my journey back to the kitchen has been one of the greatest distances I've ever traveled. Cooking was once my time to reflect on the past and the future as I stood stirring or watching something come together in a pan, planning articles, recipes, cookbooks. Now, so much of my life is spent leaning on others, and making food is no longer a solitary and meditative act. It calls to mind a phrase in Yoruba, ajo se po, meaning we do it together, or we collaborate. Or we might say, we are Sangha. So the article goes on a bit, and those of you who have the times can read it for yourselves. And maybe someday I'll figure out how to print it out. But this, we collaborate. This is the point. We are all interconnected, and we must devote our lives to experiencing this and expressing this, so that, as Adrienne Rich wrote, we can reconstitute the world.